Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Probably Private. I'm Catherine Jarmal, and I'm going to take you today through how to set up storage on your local network, or what we normally would call a NAS. So, getting your NAS set up is useful for getting your local AI running and your projects running because it means that you have a copy of your data locally. It's not something that you're going to need to wait 2 hours to download or something to the machine or get access to the machine that has the GPU in your local network. And it can also be a pretty fun way to explore other types of self-hosting of services. Okay, let's go on a trip and see my local NAS. So here's my little NAS. It's a NAS book. It's old now, but it's got about, I think, 12 terabytes I put in it of storage. So there's some disks in there, and I expanded the disks in there. And we have a little reminder. Einfach mal herunterfahren. Good reminder. For both for computers and humans, it's important to remember to shut down. And so I just wanted to take you through why did I decide on that, what storage, and maybe share some tips. So like I said, I got started with my local NAS setup about, I don't know, at this point, 7 or 8 years ago. And what I was thinking about is I'd really like my photos to be backed up someplace that is not one of the major clouds that provide my photo backup. And that's because, I know I work in privacy and machine learning. And at the time, there was a lot of rumors that maybe machine learning was going to start happening on photos. And I really didn't want my personal photos to be being used. So this was my motivation. You might have your own motivation, and your motivation doesn't have to have anything to do with privacy. But it can, right? And so my first kind of ask of you is, what data do you actually want to do machine learning on? So having that data local is useful. So what of your data is an interesting machine learning problem? But if you want to try out other types of self-hosting or do other things now that you have your data in your house, what does that mean? What might you want to do? And maybe just choose one type of hosting or data that you're really interested in, because as you get started, it's really useful to have something that you're actually going to use, especially with self-hosting, that you're going to test out and decide what you like and don't like. Also for machine learning, that's useful, right? Of motivated whatever task or project you have in mind, that when it gets to annoying parts of troubleshooting or something doesn't quite work or doesn't have the feature that you want, or when you're doing machine learning, something isn't working with whatever model you're choosing, it's really useful that you're motivated enough to also just set it aside for a while, but come back to it, right? That the frustration doesn't win. So that's my advice for you. And because I was motivated with the photos, what I first decided was I exported a bunch of the photos from the different places where I had photos. And then I took a look just on my local computer about how big of a size did I need. And then I just gave myself plenty of extra space, so to speak, where I thought, okay, for the next 5 years, let's times this by, 5, or let's times this by 10 or whatever, right? Let me overestimate a little bit of the storage that I want. But I also only said, okay, I'm going to do photo storage and I'm going to do my computer backups, because that's the two things that are most important for me. And with computer backup, I also didn't say I'm going to back up the entire operating system and the setup and whatever. I was like, I have 5 folders where I keep the data that is not synced on GitHub, and that's where I'm going to sync. And that's how I set mine up. That's just an idea for you to get started. But basically what I want you to do is find something that really motivates you, take a look at the size of the data, give yourself some overhead space to grow, and then use that to start to calculate how much size you need on the NAS, at least at the beginning of your journey, right? You can always buy more storage, but you probably want to figure out a NAS where either you can add more storage or that at least is going to work for you for the foreseeable future. So that's guesstimating your storage. Then you're going to set up some sort of redundancy, some sort of RAID. Now, depending on your operating system, there's going to be different ways to use RAID, but RAID itself has a really great Wikipedia article. I'll link it. But the really cool thing about RAID is it's redundancy, so that let's say you have 4 disks and 1 disk fails, you actually have parity checks on a distributed disk, which means that you can use error correction codes to actually, correct those or create those bits out of nothing, right? And that's related to coding theory, which is related to information theory. And I have a video on why we should all learn about information theory. But I can also highly recommend Mary Vuta's class on coding theory if you want to nerd out and start to learn, like, how does it work? Like, if a disk fails, how is it that we can magically recreate the data from that disk? And it's all with parity codes. And so it's pretty cool. But anyways, look at the RAID article, decide what level of security you want in your redundancy. So whether you want it to be able that 1 disk fails, that it recovers, or do you want to go so far as that 2 disk fails and it recovers, right? Make those choices. And then based on your guesstimate of size with a little bit of overhead, and then, what RAID backup you want, you can then actually choose the hardware for you. And that's the order of operations I did and what I would kind of recommend for you if you are just getting started in this. So next step is there's this rule called the 3-2-1 rule. And the 3-2-1 says you need 3 copies in 2 distinct media types. And one of them has to be at a different location than the other one, which technically, I guess, could be 3-2-2 with 2 being 2 locations, but neither here nor there. And it's still a relatively good rule to follow. So I still have another backup on a different cloud service of my photos that I care the most about. So I'm not anti-cloud, and you don't need to be anti-cloud either. Getting things on local storage can sometimes just mean having them more available for you, trying them out for your machine learning, AI, or other types of data tasks that you might do. And it could just mean, like, choosing which clouds have what copies of what data, right? Which is also, your choice. It's your data at the end of the day. And so one thing I would say, though, that I often see as a mistake, and this happens a lot in work too, is we decide we're going to do 3-2-1 for all of the data we have ever produced in our entire life. And let's be real. Like, when's the last time you looked at a document that you wrote, 20 years ago? I mean, maybe you actually do this regularly. But I want you to use a little bit of data minimization for you and for the environment and the world, and think, what is the data that I actually really care about? And start there. Don't start with entire data of everything. Start instead by being a little bit minimalistic and thinking through, this is the data I actually want to use for my local machine learning, or this is the data I actually really care about having backed up. No matter what happens in the world, I would always want access to this data, right? And do there, and be a bit Datensparsamkeit about it. Be a little bit thrifty with how you approach your data, because then you're probably going to use it more. Like, this is the thing I see is, like, people, move stuff to local data, and then it's too annoying because it's too much data and they've never bothered to sort through it and figure out what's valuable and not. And now they have this momentous data cleaning task ahead of them, and then they just fizzle out on their projects. So try to apply, a little bit of choosiness on what data you really start with and what data you really care about being backed up with something like the 3-2-1 data. Don't be a data hoarder, right? It's not cute on anyone, and it's certainly not cute at work. So then you're going to choose an operating system. So you got your hardware, you got enough space, you've thought through what data you're going to move on it. And before you move your data on it, you're going to have an operating system. And I'm going to share some links that I found in just thinking through how to talk with you all about this. So I'm going to share some links that I think are useful. Some people just out there letting Claude Code install everything. I don't have that type of trust relationship with Claude Code. But if that works for you, and you can maybe double check the work to make sure that it actually did what you thought it was going to do. So like if you're using it to set up RAID or you're using it to set up redundancy, you probably want to run the redundancy checks so that actually you know that when a disk fails, you can back it up and it's not just verified by an AI. But, verify, use the tools that make sense for you. I like using Linux-based operating systems. Everybody has their own operating system. Maybe that's their favorite, but don't overcomplicate your choice. And there's a few operating systems that are like very specific to self-hosting and very specific to NAS setups and this type of thing. So if that one of those speaks to you, then do that. And I'll again put some links there, but I wouldn't overly complicate it. I would just use something that will allow you to set up RAID in a way that works for you. Make sure that something that works with RAID is set up, that is going to be easy for you to use, and get software running however you want to use it. And then finally, a lot of guides that I found, they first have you set up the VPN. Like, honestly, I've turned off numerous times in using my NAS in the several years. I've known, okay, I'm not going to be accessing it for a while, and I've actually disabled the ability for the VPN to be used. Why do you use a VPN? It's because you're out somewhere and you want access to your local NAS, and that means that you have to go over your router into your house network, and you have to make that available. And I know that there's lots of cool VPN services now that make that really easy. Like I think Tailscale is doing a lot of privacy things correctly, so I'll name them. But honestly, sometimes I really like the fact that nobody can touch this system outside of my house. So there's been times where, of course, not able to come in over the local router easily and to connect with devices. So you're going to choose what security posture makes sense for you. And I wouldn't overly fixate on getting the VPN set up as the first step. A, it can be annoying to set up, and B, at the end of the day, it'd be nice to be able to access both from outside and to send workloads and stuff, and we'll go over that, how to get that running. But at the beginning, just run some local projects from your house. I mean, over the weekend or whenever you're home, right? You don't need to overcomplicate and overthink and make it work over your mobile phone and whatever as like your first step. Just choose something simple again. And yeah, don't overly complicate your architecture. There's a bunch of really cool software and services. It's amazing. I started looking this year because I saw much more people doing self-hosting, and I was like, oh, I wonder how many different libraries are available now. And there's hundreds more easy to use pieces of software than when I built my first one. So this is a little hint. I'll put some links, but I will certainly be doing some reviews of some different software and services that I've become aware of recently that look really cool that I haven't used yet. So I'm going to use them first before I would recommend them. But I'll definitely be checking that out. And if you have been doing also self-hosting, if you have an app or a service that you love, please put in the comments. Like, let's share and exchange information as people that are trying to figure out how do we do local data, how do we do local AI, and how do we do self-hosting in a way that makes sense for us, and that gives us not only the autonomy and the choice of figuring out what data you really care about and where does it live, and knowing that you have that security that you have it, right? But also the fun of being like, hey, now I built this new thing because I actually have my data the way that I want to use it, where I want to use it, and I made it easier for myself to do that. And I think maybe we're a little bit of a growing community in the world of people that want to both do this and are doing this, and let's share knowledge. So those are my tips. If you have other tips for people getting started, if you learned a lot in your own journey of building a NAS, let's build community, share them in the comments, and I look forward to hearing how your NAS journey goes. And in upcoming videos, we'll figure out how do we get the NAS talking to our GPU machine, and start to have that conversation about how we can start building our first little data and AI workflows at our home setup. So I'll see you next time.